You are fired 君はクビだ。これはトランプ大統領が2004年から司会者を務めたテレビ番組の決め台詞です。ただそれがここアメリカ労働省の労働統計局で現実のものとなりました。8月1日、労働統計局のエリカ・マッケンターファー局長が解任されました。その理由は驚くもので、トランプ大統領が7月の雇用統計で過去の雇用者数を大幅に下方修正されたことに不安を示したことです。トランプ氏は共和党と私の評価を落とすために不正な操作が行われたと主張しました。7月の雇用統計では5月と6月分の雇用者数が合わせて25万8000人分という大幅な下方修正がされていました。トランプ氏がたびたび成果として誇り堅調だと見られていたアメリカ経済の転換点かと緊張が走ったわけです。ただ経済指標とは政府の政策の決定や投資家が経済の状態を測る指針となる重要なものです。根拠を示さないまま異例の解任に踏み切ったことに批判も高まっています。テレビ東京は1993年から2001年、民主党のクリントン政権から共和党のブッシュ政権まで同じく労働統計局長を務めたキャサリン・アブラハム氏にインタビューしました。そもそもアメリカで経済指標は政治的な操作が可能なものなのか、今回の解任が経済にどのような影響を及ぼすのかなど聞いています。
I was totally shocked. The Bureau of Labor Statistics has always been, an independent sort of agency. It produces objective statistical information, and the idea that a commissioner would be fired with the charge that they had somehow rigged the numbers was just shocking to me. That can't happen. Though the numbers were not rigged, they were the same, objective information that the Bureau of Labor Statistics always produces. If people don't think that the numbers are going to be objective, that the data are going to be rigged, the respondents to the surveys that the data come from may just decide, why should I bother responding if the numbers are going to be rigged anyway? If businesses feel like they can't be confident in the quality of the data, that may affect their willingness to invest in the future of the country. I should say that I don't actually think that the data are going to be any less good going forward. I think people are going to perceive them as less credible. I don't think they're going to be less credible. And the reason that I say that is that these numbers are produced every month using procedures that are well-defined, have been in place for a long time, and they'll continue to be produced that way, I believe. So it's more about the perception of the data and rather than directly on the quality of the data. They may be noisier if this impairs the agency's ability to collect data from businesses and households, but I don't think they'll be less credible. But if they're perceived as less credible, if people don't feel like they can count on having accurate information about what's going on in the economy, yes, I think it could affect willingness to invest in U.S. assets and the perceived value of those assets.
Did you personally know Ms. McIntyre for yourself, and what reputation does she have within the economics world and statistics world?
Yeah, I've known her for years. I was trying to think how long, but it's been a long time. I know her from when she was at the Census Bureau, and she has a stellar reputation for being, a good economist and somebody who's very objective in the work that she does.
Have you seen any evidence of political manipulation by the recently fired commissioner?
Oh, absolutely not. Just absolutely not. I mean, she's a really stand-up person, and I am confident she would have no interest in rigging the numbers, and even if she wanted to, she couldn't. The commissioner has always had a distant relationship with the administration, in the sense that there was a clear firewall between the Bureau of Labor Statistics producing the economic data and the policymakers who were going to use the data. I never, as commissioner, met with the president. That wasn't my role. I was producing data that fed into the policy process. And I certainly never felt pressure to produce any particular set of numbers. My role was just to produce the facts. So the commissioner actually has no influence at all on the numbers that are produced. Just thinking about the payroll employment numbers that were the thing that caused the commissioner to get fired. The payroll employment numbers are produced by staff in the Office of Employment and Unemployment Statistics. They design the survey sample, they're involved in going out and collecting the survey responses and producing the estimates. And by the time the commissioner sees them, the numbers are finalized. The commissioner has no role month to month in what the numbers are.
一方でトランプ氏が問題視した7月の雇用統計での大幅な下方修正、25万8000人分の修正という大きなブレを生んだ要因は何だったのでしょうか。
Those revisions are just a normal part of the process of managing that trade-off between how quickly you get things out and how accurate the numbers are. So it's not in any way abnormal that there would be revisions. These revisions were large. I'm not sure exactly why that is. Part of it may be that response rates to the survey have been falling, so that we have fewer responses to base the initial estimates on, and that could lead to larger revisions. It's also the case that when the economy is at a turning point, you often see bigger revisions, and maybe a series of revisions in the same direction. So this could be a signal that the economy is weakening. Maybe we're starting to see the effects of tariffs on employment, for example.
Do you think that businesses are holding off on hiring as they try to understand the volatile tariff policy?
I think yes, I think they probably are. I mean, I think they've held off on changing prices until they saw what was going to happen. I'm sure that some of them are holding off on making employment decisions until they figure out what's going to happen. The other big thing is what's been happening with immigration enforcement. I'm sure that that's had some impact on employment as well, as people are being rounded up and deported. That's one thing, but also fewer people coming into the country is going to have an effect on employment.
How would you evaluate the overall job market? And do you think we're at this full or maximum employment level that I guess many on the Fed might be thinking that we are?
It was an interesting question. Unemployment is still really low. I know, people coming out of college are having more trouble finding jobs than they used to, but overall unemployment is really low by historical standards. Employment growth has slowed, but if that's partly reflecting the fact that we have fewer people coming into the country, it doesn't necessarily mean that the job market is weaker. I think we're going to need to look and see what happens over the coming months. I think there's some risk of the job market getting weaker, but I don't think we know yet.
トランプ氏の雇用統計への批判の一方で、経済指標や統計は課題も抱えています。調査アンケートが複雑なため、回答する家庭や企業が敬遠していることや、政府側も人手や予算が不足しています。労働統計局は4月、消費者物価指数における調査対象からニューヨーク州やネブラスカ州などの3つの都市を外すことを決めました。経済指標はどこまで信用できるのか、そう問われてしまわないような対策は打てるのでしょうか。
I'm concerned about staffing levels at the BLS generally. The effect of dropping those 3 cities on the top side numbers is going to be very small. But I think there's just a more general issue that staffing at the agency has been really constrained. It's getting harder to collect data from businesses and households. If you have fewer people, you're less able to go out and follow up with non-respondents, collect the data. And you also don't have the resources to make the kind of changes in the way we produce these statistics that I think, in the medium to long run, we need to be making. You could imagine making much more use of the data that big payroll processors have from all of their customers. And I think the BLS would like to be looking at reinventing how they're producing these data, but without resources, it's very hard to do that. In terms of the effects of this firing, something else I worry about is that people at the BLS and other statistical agencies looking at this and thinking about the environment that they're working in may decide it's just not worth it and they're going to leave and go do something else. And so that could be another bad consequence of this. I'm really confident. I have a lot of confidence in the structural integrity of the agency. The staff have been there, many of them, for a long time. They're very proud of the role that the Bureau of Labor Statistics plays, and I think there would be resistance to anything that was seen as unprofessional. I guess I have confidence that in the end, this is going to get corrected, that there will be an understanding that we need to have objective data, that it's going to hurt the country if there's a perception that we don't, and that someone will get put in place who's credible. So I think it probably will be okay, but I'm not as sure as I was a week ago that the high reputation, the strong reputation that U.S. economic data have always had will continue in the future.